Fantastic. Everyone all good? Excellent. Hey, good morning everyone, and it's great to see you all here at the Papakura to Drury project. I'm here with Under Secretary Simon Court and National MPs Paolo Garcia and Carlos Chung. Last year we promised to prioritise the delivery of transport infrastructure that boosts productivity and support economic growth. We also promised to deliver a transport network which makes efficient use of every dollar that is spent. When we came to government, we were advised that the New Zealand... That's right. When we came to government, we were advised that the New Zealand Upgrade Program would have a significant funding gap of $1.5 billion. The Auditor General has also released a damning report that found the New Zealand Upgrade Program was rushed. It enabled ministers to make decisions on projects without enough detail, and that it put value for money at risk. It would be irresponsible for us to continue with the program in the way that it was designed for transport. We have a responsibility to ensure that New Zealand taxpayers get value for money. That's why today I'm announcing the government is turning the page on this program and making significant changes around how decisions will be made within it in regards to the roading part of the program. NZTA will now be given delegated decision making around scope and delivery decisions at a delivery agency level rather than those decisions being made by ministers. NZTA will be required to stay within the budget as there will be no additional Crown funding, and we will be progressing the projects within two different categories: roads of national significance and roads of regional significance. A further two projects will be incorporated into the National Land Transport Program under the Mill Road and Whangarei to Port Marsden, and we will make sure that the decisions around the projects within the New Zealand Upgrade Program are made within the budget that has been allocated. We know we're in tight fiscal environments and we need to make tough decisions to keep costs under control. But today's announcement also provides certainty of delivery to communities across the country that will benefit from these projects. The roads of national significance built by the previous national government are some of New Zealand's most successful state highway corridors. Expanding this program to roads that are regionally significant will ensure that our cities and regions are well connected and our economy thrives. Thank you for coming, and happy to take any questions.
So, can you just confirm this? Is this the cancellation of NZR?
Well, effectively, we are phasing this, we're taking it away from ministers making these decisions, and we are giving it to the New Zealand Transport Agency Board. The New Zealand Upgrade slogan won't be used when it comes to the roading component. Instead, they will be under the roads of national significance or roads of regional significance names.
And obviously NZR has other projects in it.
Correct.
It's got, obviously rail.
So rail and other things. This is to do with the roading component. We're putting it under categories of roads of national significance, such as Otaki to north of Levin, and roads of regional significance, such as Penlink.
And so what happens to the other projects which are currently still in the
So we're going to be delivering, I think there's 14 projects or 16 projects. 2 will be taken out, which is the last government was proposing to put some safety barriers between Whangarei and Port Marsden. We're saying that needs to be a 4-lane expressway as a road of national significance, so that'll be put back within the GPS. Mill Road upgrades, the last government had already taken the money from that to put towards Otaki to north of Levin. We're obviously going to deliver that as part of a road of national significance. 2 other projects, Brougham Street and Christchurch, State Highway 22, just further south of here, will be delivered to pre-implementation. And if funding is left available within the remaining $6.5 billion within this fund, then those projects will then be delivered. But there's a number of major projects which are still going through contractual negotiations, such as the next 2 stages of this project behind us, Otaki to north of Levin and Melling, and once the numbers are clear on that, we'll then be able to make NZTA will then be able to make funding decisions for those other 2 smaller projects.
And you've told NZTA that, so so any project from now, it basically can't go over its funding allowance.
That is the funding allowance that we have provided, and they're at a stage where they've got much better understanding of the costs. And what we're saying is we expect you to deliver within this budget, and we're going to give you decision-making rights around scope of those projects to get things done.
And so what happens if a project does? Inevitably, there are always blowouts, there's unforeseen problems and that sort of thing. So is it then on Waka Kotahi to come up with a different funding arrangement,
Well,
be it tolls or some public-private partnership, or sort of that, if that is at the Crown?
Well,
what happens then if there's a blowout?
Well, as we've said, we're open to a range of funding and financing tools, and whether that's looking at tolling arrangements, we'll be, as we've outlined in the draft GPS, we'll accept those recommendations where those recommendations are put forward. But ultimately, they will need to make those changes within the $6.5 billion envelope within this project. It's a significant funding allocation towards these projects, and actually we're making it very clear that we need to see much closer scrutiny of costs, of cost drivers, of scope. One of the big problems that the Auditor General identified was that scope creep was adding significant cost to these projects. And so actually we want to get the agency getting scope under control so that the core things that we want delivered, which is the roading upgrades, is what is being delivered. And that's the decision making that we're giving to the agency to deliver upon.
And so sorry, why do you think ministers aren't best placed to make those decisions?
Well, ultimately it was because ministers were adding further scope to a lot of these projects. That was delaying decisions, which the delay was adding cost. And of course the decision making process is slower. And so the advice would go up, it required sign-off, that added more time and complexity to the whole process, as the Auditor General identified. So what we're doing is we're going to a much more traditional model, whereby the agency's board is given decision-making responsibility, the government sets the direction, and then they operate within the scope that the government has provided for them to deliver within.
Yes, just about fast tracking.
Yes.
What sort of changes do you think the select committee process might bring?
Well, ultimately, my colleague Chris Bishop's responsible for the fast track bill. He's made it clear that we're open to looking at sensible changes around where decision-making responsibilities should lie, but also he's made it very clear that we are committed to a fast track, one-stop shop piece of legislation. We need to get things done faster in New Zealand, and we need to be able to make decisions so we can actually have more projects under delivery rather than just been talking about things.
If ministers can't be trusted to make decisions for roading infrastructure, why should they be trusted to make decisions for fast-track projects?
Well, ultimately the responsibility in terms of consenting is about actually getting consents approved. We want to get consents approved so that we can actually get projects delivered. What we're talking about here is in terms of the New Zealand Upgrade Program, is changes in scope which constantly add more cost and complexity, and then a slower decision-making process, which is part of what we've seen through the New Zealand Upgrade Program. So Fast Track One Stop Shop is saying we need to say yes to building things rather than the slow processes we're seeing at the moment. Think about renewable energy. The wind farm outside of Wellington took almost 8 years to consent. That's unbelievable when we're trying to meet our net zero 2050 targets.
Are you prepared to give up executive ministerial powers if the select committee calls for it?
Well, look, we've said we're open to sensible changes. I think Minister Bishop said that. Ultimately, he's the minister responsible for that bill, but that's why it's gone through a full select committee process over 6 months so that we can hear from New Zealanders. But as Minister Bishop has made very clear, we are committed to a one-stop shop fast-track consenting regime so we can get decisions made faster in New Zealand.
If ministerial powers are changed, do you expect the panel to have greater power instead and be able to sign off pretty much anything from nuclear power to what we're talking about today?
Well, I mean, no one's suggesting nuclear power. We've got a very bipartisan policy on that particular issue. But what we are saying is we need to make decisions faster. It's not acceptable that it can take up to 8 years to consent a wind farm when we're trying to meet our net zero 2050 targets. As the energy sector said, that puts our entire net zero targets at risk if we don't fix it. So that's what the intent behind this bill is. We're listening to submitters and we look forward to hearing the Select Committee's report.
Are you surprised at the amount of public pushback given your government's insisted that it's pretty much the same legislation as the previous?
Look, no, ultimately, that's why we go to select committee process, to hear what the concerns and the views of the community are. There's people who are submitting in favour, there's people who are submitting opposed, but what we're saying is very clear. We need to be a government which actually gets things done, and we need to make decisions a lot faster. So you're upholding environmental standards while making those decisions quickly so we can actually get things done.
Minister, what's your thoughts on the new car park changes or parking changes being implemented at Auckland?
Oh, look, ultimately, well, there's two things. One is Auckland Council and Auckland Transport are responsible for those type of decisions. But I think, as the Mayor said, and I tend to agree with him, there does need to be greater accountability over Auckland Transport, and we're working through some potential options, what that might look like.
Do you think that's a good move, considering the financial, economic stance that most people are in currently?
Yeah, I think when you're trying to get more people to come into the city at night time, it clearly rubs against that, but ultimately those are decisions that the Council and Auckland Transport need to make in terms of getting that balance right. At the same time, I agree with the Mayor, there needs to be a greater level of accountability over Auckland Transport.
How do you rate Transpower's handling of the weekend grid issues? Well, do you think there's any lessons to be learned from that?
I think they took a very good approach to it. Obviously, it was quite a significant solar event, and so they took a precautionary approach, which I think was the right thing to do. They briefed me on Saturday, and ultimately, as they go through these solar flares, they've got to be precautionary because it could be quite damaging to parts of the electricity system. So it's very important to take a precautionary approach.
Do you have updated numbers on how much was spent through that NZ program? What's the latest advice?
Well, we were told on coming to government that there would be a $1.5 billion funding hole, hence why we've made some changes. The total program is $6.5 billion. I can come back with the exact number on how much has been spent to date, but a number of the major projects haven't started yet, such as Otaki to north of Levin and Melling, so there's significant amounts still to be spent.
Important question here. So, roads of national significance is roads. How do you pronounce the acronym for roads of regional significance?
Oh, look, I'd just say it's the RAWs. The roads of regional significance.
As Minister for Transport, did you have any sort of indication from Auckland Transport that they were making those changes to the parking?
No, I was not. No.
Would you have expected to be?
Well, it's ultimately a local issue, and they get to make those decisions. But I think, as I said before, the Mayor makes a good point around needing some greater accountability in terms of his relationship with that agency.
What would you prefer? Auckland's rates to go up or increased parking?
Well, ultimately, those are decisions that Auckland Council and Auckland Transport need to make. Great. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day. Cheers.